Hello and a very good evening to you. It's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock tomorrow morning. And coming up at midnight, we're going to be discussing Diane Abbott and the letter she wrote to the Observer and then her absolutely ludicrous apology. She wants to disassociate herself from her own comments and said that the letter was a draft. Huh? Well, anyway, unless somebody else wrote it, I can't see how it being a draft or not makes any difference. Do you think she meant it? Do you think that she's racist? Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Right, let's talk law now and what's going on in the world of law and futures. Not as in financial futures, but what is happening to the world at the moment. It's gone bonkers. Andrew Eborn joins me now, who's a barrister and broadcaster. Andrew, a very good evening to you.
A very good evening to you too, Petrie. How are you doing? You surviving?
Yeah, just about. It's a world gone mad. But
tell me about it. Extraordinary.
What on earth? And what is going on with this? I'm going to kick off with robots could soon replace humans in deciding court disputes.
Isn't that glorious? And that came from Sir Geoffrey Voss, who's the master of the rules, one of the most senior judges. And basically he's saying that advances in technology means that it's a real possibility that AI may become more intelligent and capable than humans. Now, he's a great, ardent supporter of using technology. And we really have to understand what is possible. And in terms of assimilating data and churning out decisions based on that data, it can basically beat the suited and booted lawyers because it is so incredibly fast. The difficulty is that it does have some errors and it does these things called hallucinations, where if it doesn't know the answer to something, then it basically sort of makes it up a bit.
Maybe that's like me, really.
Well, it could be an excuse Diane Abbott could use, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
She could say it's a hallucination, but done by AI. That'd be a much better excuse. But that's basically it. And what's happened? ChatGPT, which is generally a pre-trained transformer, which is a bit of a mouthful. Basically, the 3.5 version finished. It passed the bar exams in the US and finished in the bottom 10%. But the latest version, which is version 4, finished in the top 10%, which means that it's massively improving all of the time. And it's great for certain things. It's great for drafting documents. It's great for summarizing all sorts of things. But certain things, such as trying to deal with people, obviously you need a human lawyer to help with that.
Well, you're bound to say that. You're bound to say that. The thing is, though, we're not talking about having juries that are computers. I mean, I think that is probably the future. Well, they'll just tap in the crime and statistics and all of that kind of thing, and a computer will say guilty or not guilty. I'm fairly certain that's the way it's going to go. But we're not talking about that right now, are we?
Well, we may be in the future, but you're right at the moment. I think the best analogy is in a criminal case. What the judge will tell you is that the jury decide the facts and the judge guides you on the law. Now, basically, AI will be brilliant at talking about the law because it can summarize all of the wonderful precedents. It can look at all the different case law and tell you what the decision should be. So China, for example, they claim that they've managed to reduce the workload of judges by about a third and have saved $45 billion in the process.
That's terrifying. So, that is terrifying because there is so much about crime that is nuanced. Well, I know that sounds like a weird thing to say because people say, no, you're either guilty or you're innocent. But so much of it relies on nuance and, decision making and when, all of those things. How can a computer possibly catch up with that?
And I think that's the saving grace for lawyers at the moment. They need to understand what the technology can do at the moment. And it can analyse all different cases and so on and so forth. But to judge whether the person in front of you is telling the truth or telling a lie is indeed about nuance and so on and so forth. And I think that's where you have the saving grace. But what's interesting, Thomson Reuters said about 9% of large commercial firms in the UK are either using or planning to use AI at the moment, compared to about 3% in the US. And there are various legal platforms, which I talked about hallucinations, about things making it up. So Brian Hood, the Australian mayor, was falsely reported as having been imprisoned for bribery, for example. And there was a US law professor who was falsely accused of basically sexually assaulting or harassing a student. All of these were false because the system wants to fill the gaps. So there's a company called Casetext, for example, which has addressed that, and they have created this thing called co-counsel as a legal assistant, and it can basically do drafts of documents. It can summarize various bits of evidence, but it's also tailored to reduce these hallucinations by basically, if it doesn't know the answer, it tells you that it doesn't rather than make something up.
Good heavens. Does that mean our legal bills are going to be cheaper in the future?
Yes, it does. Isn't that the great news?
That is the great news, yeah.
You were talking earlier in the programme, I heard you about 20 lawyers give you 20 different opinions. I always say, give me a one-handed lawyer, because lawyers always say, on the one hand, there's this, and on the other hand, there's that. And it's my favourite cartoon from the 18th century by a brilliant satirical cartoonist called J. Bright, who always depicts litigation as a cow, litigation written on the cow, and the plaintiff is pulling the horns and the defendant is pulling the tail, and there's the lawyer milking it.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, that is a very good cartoon. Let's talk about Michael Schumacher. This story, I must admit, I kind of didn't quite understand it, but the family is taking legal action over a magazine's AI interview. This is an interview in a German magazine, I think, and was it that they faked an interview with Schumacher?
It was totally that. So AI is, Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk and Jack Ma basically all said it's our greatest human achievement, but it's also our biggest existential threat. And what happens is AI can do anything that humans can do. So what happened in this particular case, it was an article published by a magazine in Germany. It was billed as the first ever interview with Michael Schumacher, and the 7-time world champion, as you probably know, he suffered brain injuries when he fell while skiing in December 2013. He hasn't spoken to the press at all since then. But the German magazine Die Aktuell it ran an image of Schumacher on its front cover, and it promised that this was the first ever interview with him, calling it a world sensation. But under the sort of article, it said it's deceptively real because it clarified that it was done by AI. And what the AI did was predict what Michael would have said or might have said had he been interviewed. Now, clearly, there's all sorts of rights involved with that. The family are deeply upset. It's entirely fictitious.
It's disgusting. It's disgraceful. Yeah. Like I said, he probably can't talk. We don't know his mental health because the family have taken him away. So we don't know the state of his health because he's being treated at home. But to suggest, even in that context, that somebody is talking would be heartbreaking if indeed he isn't.
Absolutely. So I think it's on the positive side, it shows what AI can do. On the negative side, it shows all of the troubled use that may happen as a result. So it was very, very wrong of them to do that. They should have thought about the family. The family deliberately kept Michael's situation private for a very long time.
Yeah, honestly, at some people, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that is a lesson that is a mantra we should all keep at the forefront of our minds. Yeah. This was interesting to me. Lidl wins a logo lawsuit against Tesco. Now, I was surprised by this because I would have thought a yellow circle is a yellow circle. And but it isn't.
Absolutely. Every Lidl counts is what they say.
Yeah.
And what happened? So Tesco basically lost in the High Court, and the Tesco Club logo basically copied Lidl's logo. They both use a yellow circle on a square blue background. And what the judge, Joanna Smith, said is that Tesco had taken unfair advantage of the distinctive reputation for low prices held by Lidl's trademarks. Now, obviously, Tesco intends to appeal, but for now, that's what's happened, and Lidl have won this particular thing. I wandered past, very close to my home in Regent's Park, we have both a Lidl and a Tesco next door to each other, and I can tell you that Tesco is still using that particular logo.
But I didn't think they looked that much alike. I guess the yellow circle on a blue background could be, but one of them's got a red rim around it. That's the Lidl. It's got Lidl in the middle. And Tesco, I don't know. Can you... well, the judge has said, that it was a copy.
Well, the judge has absolutely said it's an infringement of both the trademark and also copyright. So
wow.
It will go to appeal because there's such huge amounts of money involved. The legal fees alone, we talked about this earlier, are over 2.3 million to date.
Wowza.
So it's huge amounts of money involved. When these big giants start fighting each other, it is like sort of these
That's when
huge
the lawyers
gorillas.
start rubbing their hands and going,
Oh, we
yeah,
love it. Bring it
yes,
in. Bring
yeah.
it in.
Let's just no. You should be really angry about this. Let's go back to
I am
court.
angry. I am angry.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Well,
But they've had a lot of these cases. I mean, M&S has been taken on by a craft brewery company because they use their logo without permission. And you might remember their big case when you had Cuthbert and
I
Free Cuthbert
do. Yeah.
and that sort of stuff with the Caterpillar, the food fights that they used to have. So trademarks are really, really big business. And if you get it wrong, then obviously, there we are. You've got your Lidl, pop up with a graphic. Lidl and Clubcard, you can see. And people would say, look, if they're going to be confused by it, then they might think that they're connected in some way or they're offering the same sort of prices. And that's what the judge held in this instance. Guaranteed it's going to appeal because it's only in the first court, as we said in the High Court.
Do you know what? I have no sympathy for either Tesco or Lidl. They make an absolute fortune in profits every single year, so they can spend their money with lawyers. I don't care.
Hey, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I'd be very grateful for that.
Yeah. Now, am I going to be able to buy toilet rolls?
Well,
this
there's
is
a big problem with this at the moment.
Obviously.
It's a big issue. And this is an EU law, which is basically turning around and saying that because of deforestation and stuff like that, certain products, including toilet roll, are not going to be able to be produced. And there's going to be apparently a toilet roll shortage. And I always worry about saying these sort of things because they become self-fulfilling prophecies.
They do, yeah. People run out.
In the pandemic and everything else, and people just rush out to buy them. And then, of course, there's a shortage and it's self-fulfilling prophecy. But basically what it is, there's an EU is set to ban products and items tied to deforestation. And the new laws require all companies trading commodities like wood, coffee, soy, and cocoa to follow strict protocols regarding trade with the bloc. Key to this is the fact that the products are linked to deforestation, as I said, which we banned in that sort of stuff. So people are saying,
all paper products then.
Well, exactly. And you've got not just sort of toilet rolls, but other aspects as well, paper towels, facial tissues, and so on and so forth. They all use the raw material. So it's something which to be looked out for. Some companies are saying, no, it's not a problem. Other companies are saying, oh, my goodness, this is what's going to happen. And the easiest way of selling anything is through fear. It was Edward Bernays, the father of PR, who said, if you want to sell anything, fear is the most powerful human emotion.
Absolutely. Tell somebody they can't have something and they want it more than anything else. That's like me on a diet. So it's just terrible. It's terrible. Finally, I found this fascinating, this story. It goes back to Germany as well. The AI-generated image that won the world-renowned photography competition. Now, this was a German photographer who was testing the competition, won and said, I'm not taking the prize because I didn't take the photo.
Well, exactly. And it's photographer Boris Elgenson, I think his name is. His title was called The Electrician, and it took first place in the Creative Open category at the Sony World Photography Award. And the trouble is, it was created by AI, rather similar to these various other things that we've spoken about. And he said he just wanted to sort of test the system to see whether or not the people would spot it and to see whether or not it would basically cause an issue. And he did. He went ahead and won the thing and then confessed, apparently during the ceremony, well, it wasn't me, it was AI. So thank you very much.
I mean, that is good on him, for being honest. Not like that marathon runner that got a lift in a car and then took the prize and then went, oh, sorry, I shouldn't have taken the medal. But I mean, he genuinely said, look, this was the reason I did this was to talk about the future of photography. And we got an image there, and it for me it's clearly AI generated because it shows two generations of women, and so they couldn't possibly be in the same photograph. I think it's different decades, yes. And so they couldn't be in the same photograph. But he nonetheless won with it, and then said, "Look, I wanted to provoke a conversation about what happens in photography because." Anyone can sit in front of a computer now and create any image they want to and claim it was a photograph. It's like the deep fakes or fake news or all of these things. So it really does put pressure on photographers and photography.
Oh, yes, and it's not just photographers. It's in the music industry as well. We had Drake and The Weeknd There was a lot of press about that sort of side. You, as an incredibly talented artist, will appreciate the difficulties that this provokes across all media, because it can write poems, it can create music, and create photographs, it creates fake. We had if the devil wears Prada, well, the Pope prefers puffer jackets, if you believe what we saw on the internet. All of those sort of things. The best advice is question everything. The future is an extraordinary shape where we're going to be, but also these things which will be created by AI, we must be aware of the possibilities, but also be very, very wary of the potential dangers.
But what do we believe? I mean, you as a barrister, if you're taking on a criminal case, do you believe CCTV anymore? Do you believe photographic evidence anymore? Can you believe anything? I mean, this is deeply worrying.
And I think this is what's going to happen, and you will find more and more people relying on this very fact. You'll turn around and say, well, hang about, you can fake these things.
Yeah, that's not me.
People say the camera never lies. Well, it does. Perception is the biggest deception. And I think now you have to question everything. And I think now the abilities of AI and what's happening in this space are really, really powerful. But as I said beforehand, it's our greatest achievement, but also our biggest existential threat.
Yeah, it's going to cause, I mean, you cannot help but cause havoc in courtrooms in the future. People, the innocent will be thrown in and the guilty will get away. And I know that happens, but not for want of trying. This will be just open season. It's just very, very worrying.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if you have an AI lawyer as well who will take advantage of it.
Yeah, but at least they'll be cheap.
Hey!
At least they'll be cheap. Andrew Eborn, it's always fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much for those wonderful stories. Barrister and broadcaster Andrew Eborn there. Thank you so much. Right, coming up, we're going to talk sport. Football. Wrexham. Oh, what a shocker. How are they doing it? Well, Sam, Sport Stevens, might just know.